We are welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so blessed to have our friends at the James L. West Center here to talk about seeing the signs, early detection, and diagnosis of dementia. But before we get started, I want you to all welcome really Holly Lowe, and Holly's been through a lot, and prayers for Holly that she peace comes to you. Seriously, I bring that up because I know there's many, many, many people out there that are on here that just love you and love what you do to help them. And so we're sending love your way, okay?
Thank you so
Um,
much.
so as we get started, let's talk about continuing education units, and I'm going to let Jamie Cobb start with that, if you would, Jamie.
Absolutely. Thanks, Marty. We are happy to offer 1.5 CE credits for social work, nursing, LPCs, and then a certificate of attendance. In order to get your CE credits, there is going to be a Survey Monkey evaluation that is going to be sent out in the follow-up email after today's webinar. If you click on the Survey Monkey evaluation, you must complete it. It would only take a minute and a half. And after that, if you will allow 4 to 5 weeks for us to process all the requests for CE credits, and we will email those out to you. You do have about a week to complete the evaluation, and then we start the processing of the credits process, and then we'll get those out to you. But please make sure that you complete the Survey Monkey. It is required if you want CE credits. We do always ask for your feedback. If you just want to provide that, is most welcome, but required to get your CE credits.
Please know that when we've got right now 152 people on. We'll probably get close to 200 by the time we're done. It takes a while. The processing of the CEUs takes a while. Please be patient with us. We have some webinars when we have 400 people on, and those are really brutal, let me tell you. And so please bear with them. In addition to to Jamie and Holly's Survey Monkey evaluation, we also have a Google survey evaluation that helps us report back to the funders that provide the funding to us to put these on. So please respond to both if you would. Both will be in the follow-up email. The Google survey will actually pop up as you close out of Zoom today. It should pop up for you and just ask if you'd like to take a short survey. It's really very, very short. You click on it and it will take you to our Google survey. But watch out for the follow-up email, because that Survey Monkey survey is the one that's required for CEUs or certificates of attendance, because the James L. West Center is so graciously providing those for these webinars. So that being said, I'm gonna, in just a second, I'm gonna put the link to the slides in the chat if you didn't get them in your login information. And Jamie, if you please introduce Holly for us.
So Holly is our Director of Education and Family Support Services at the James L. West Center. She's a licensed counselor, specializes in grief and trauma as well, and she is a dementia care expert. So you are in good hands with Holly. Turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jamie and Marty. Glad to be back. Glad to be back. And to talk about this subject. This is something that we get lots and lots of calls about this. And what do I look for in my loved one? What do I look for in myself? What's normal? What's not normal as I'm aging? And then how do I start getting that diagnosis? When and if we get the diagnosis, what then? We're going to cover all of that in the next hour and 15 minutes. All right, so let's get started. There's some information about us here at the West Center, and there's our objectives, but let's just jump in with, so what is normal and what's not normal as we start to age? Let's start with this sentence right here. This is huge. Make sure everybody hears this. Any type of memory loss, real memory loss, not normal. That is not a normal part of aging. We'll talk about some things that can cause memory loss that's not dementia. But actual memory loss, that is not a normal part of aging. So when people call or come in and they talk to me, they talk to Jamie, and they're saying things like, well, they're just getting older. Getting older does not mean that we have memory loss. Getting older means that we slow down. We're going to slow down. Things change. Is our vision going to change as we get older? Absolutely, it is. Is our hearing going to change as we get older? It is. Is our decrease in strength and stamina going to change as we get older? You better believe it. Am I going to start running through all of the grandkids' names before I get to the right grandkid? Yes, that's normal. Am I maybe going to make a mistake? Where did I park my car? Yes, I'm going to do that. Why did I come in this room? Where are my glasses? Where's the phone? Where's the remote? Those type of things. But we shouldn't be finding the remote in the freezer. We should be finding it down in the cushions. And we shouldn't be missing the doctor's appointment and then not even recalling that we had a doctor's appointment. So forgetting names, forgetting numbers, forgetting where we put things, that may start to decline. But actual memory loss, that should not happen. So this is what the older, healthy brain should look like. There's still communication between those neurons, because what we're going to find in dementia is there's not clear communication. There's going to be hit and miss, and eventually it's all miss because it's gone. That blood flow to the brain might be reduced, but we most definitely still have the blood flow to the brain. We might even have a little bit of shrinkage, a little bit of inflammation, a slower response to sensory stimuli. Extremely resourceful, though. The older we get, the more resourceful we become. Think about it. I'm guessing most of us on here, although I'm sure we've got some really young people also. These things, I'm holding my cell phone. There it is, holding my cell phone. That's new learning for a lot of us. This is new learning in the big scheme of things. Extremely resourceful. We know how to do things the older we get that the young people don't know how to do because they've never had to do it or they hadn't come up against it before. So we're more resourceful the older we get. Our comprehension and our general knowledge improves. We just become a bank full of useless trivia, is what I like to think, especially if we allow ourselves to be lifelong learners. If you continue to learn, which is one of the best things you can do for your brain, we just have all of this knowledge. The other thing we get better at as we get older is the ability to pick up on how other people feel and the ability to make really good decisions. Comes with age. It comes with experience, comes with knowledge. We also have a plastic brain. Notice that's in quotes there, because we can adapt to new challenges and tasks. Doesn't mean that it's easy, but we can do it. We can be resilient. We can have tenacity. We can have grit. I've been talking a lot about those three words lately. When this phone updates, I get mad, but I can figure it out. That's the older, healthy brain. We also have that reserve where the brain just continues to work well. Some other things about normal aging, and some of this will repeat a little bit, so I'll go through this. That memory becoming less efficient, this is where, and I know you've done this, and I'll probably do it during this program. You know the word, hold on a minute. It's on the tip of my tongue. I've already done it several times today, but that's what I'm talking about. That's normal. That's normal aging, where I just can't find the word, but in 5, 6, 7 minutes it comes to me, or maybe in the middle of the night, there it is. That's normal. That's normal. Don't worry about that. But when we start replacing the word, this is pretty common in dementia. You know the thing in the stuff. You know the thing in the stuff. and that word is gone, and they really can't think of the word for the thing because the noun is gone. Another thing that's interesting, if you look at that third bullet point, we're not getting lost in familiar places, but we might have to stop a minute to remember the way. Okay, wait a minute. Oh, yeah, it's over here. That's normal. That's a normal part of aging, especially if we hadn't been there in a long time. Maybe it's a doctor's office it's on the third floor. Do I go right or left off the elevator? Oh, yeah. I remember. Able to operate common devices, even if unwilling to learn how to operate new devices. Maintains prior level of interpersonal social skills, that recent memory for important events, affairs, conversations is not impaired. Other normal aging. Now, this is key. This first bullet point on this one. The person themselves, me, I may be more concerned about forgetfulness than other people. I feel like something's going on, but nobody is mentioning that they're seeing anything. That's a normal part of aging. So I'll have family caregivers say to me all the time, I think I'm catching it. I'm catching dementia, which you can't do, by the way, it's not contagious. I think I'm catching dementia. No, you're not. You're stressed out because you're a caregiver. Again, that faint decline in finding words where we may have more instances, especially if we've had a big life event happening. Okay, hold on. I can't quite think of the word. I can't call the person's name. I know that I know you, but I just can't place the name, or maybe even, okay, how do I know you? I know you through so, but I know that I know you. We should always be able to register and learn new information and have a recall on that information. Now, as we get older, multitasking does become more difficult, but we can still multitask. You'll find a person with dementia, they can't multitask. They've got a one-track mind. We learn to use that to our advantage. Because if we can get their mind off of this and over onto this, that's a good thing. Remembering those details declines, our learning style, it can change a little bit. In other words, we get a little bit set in our ways, don't we? And the ability to reason and make sense out of information does not decline. So we should always be able to be reasonable and rational. So let's look at some signs of abnormal aging. The key is if it disrupts daily life. If there is forgetfulness that starts to disrupt daily life. Getting lost in familiar places. Taking hours to find our way home. Not being able to operate common devices like the remote, the phone, the microwave, and then unable to learn new updates to devices or new simple devices. This can be as simple as maybe a lift chair. Maybe you got somebody a lift chair for the first time. If you've ever seen how the lift chair works and they just cannot figure out, but that arrow's up and that arrow's down. And then I'm trying to be reasonable and rational with someone who can't be reasonable and rational anymore. So I talk louder and slower and then they're getting mad. And I think they're having a behavior when in reality, they're having some brain changes going on. Abnormal aging, starting to withdraw from social activities, maybe even doing some things socially that's inappropriate. And then this is key as well. This is the opposite of what we saw in normal aging, that first bullet point. Family members and friends are much more concerned about instances of memory loss than the person themselves. In fact, sometimes families will say things like, it's like they don't even know. Well, do they realize something's going on with them? Of course they do. We all know when something's going on with us. But are they saying it? Maybe not. But are you finding notes around the house? Are you finding that they've been buying a lot of vitamins or supplements? They know. They may not be saying it, but it's really common when somebody really is starting to develop some abnormal memory issues that family and friends are noticing it, and they might seem oblivious. Frequent trouble with vocabulary, word finding, substitutions, pauses, repeating themselves over and over, asking the same question over and over, misplacing things and not being able to retrace their steps. We can lose our keys and say, okay, wait a minute, where'd I have them? Now I know I had them this morning. Let's see, I put them, and we can retrace. Or a person with dementia is not going to be able to retrace. And we can say, where's the last place you had them? Well, I didn't even have them. Okay. Trouble learning new things, forgetting how to do familiar things, forgetting an entire event or an entire occasion, mood and personality changes, and then poor judgment or decision making. Again, Alzheimer's and all other related dementias are not a normal part of aging. So keep in mind, there's over 100 different types of dementia. Alzheimer's is the most common type of dementia. That's why we hear about that one the most. Here are the 10 most common warning signs that a person is developing dementia. Again, not a normal part of aging. We're going to want to contact the doctor. We're going to go through those steps before the end of this. Is how do we start if we really are seeing these? Memory loss, difficulty performing familiar tasks, problems with language. Those are the top 3 that we tend to see. Disorientation to time and place, poor or decreased judgment, problems keeping track of things, misplacing things, changes in mood and behavior, trouble with images and spatial relationships, and withdrawing from work and social activities. Now, again, if you looked at that and went, oh my goodness, I'm seeing myself in some of those. If you really, really are, then we're going to give you instructions on what you can do next. Or if you're seeing it in somebody else, don't ignore it. Don't ignore it. So let's look at what exactly is dementia then. Dementia is an umbrella term, just like the word cancer is an umbrella term. It is a general term for a group of symptoms. There's over 35 common symptoms or effects from dementia. Typically, it starts with memory, judgment, and language changes. But there's a couple of different types of dementia that present with no memory loss. Yes, a person can have a dementia and not have memory loss yet. It's coming. But a person with frontotemporal dementia or Lewy body dementia many times will have other symptoms or effects before the memory loss shows up. It is not a normal part of aging. Make sure you got that, and it is not contagious. This is that good graphic showing that dementia is an umbrella term. There's about 36 common symptoms or effects. And then you see there it says reversible. So we're going to talk about what are some things that can cause a reversible memory loss. A reversible memory loss. Now in healthcare, they will use the word reversible dementia. We don't like that word because people hear it and think, oh, that means we can reverse all dementias, and we can't. I prefer to say reversible memory loss because there are some things that cause memory loss that we can reverse. Things like infections and immune disorders can cause a lot of confusion. Other health conditions can cause confusion. Malnutrition can cause confusion. Vitamin deficiencies, electrolyte imbalances can actually cause memory loss. Medication interactions can cause memory loss or confusion. Lifestyle choices like drugs or alcohol or misusing prescription medications can cause confusion and memory loss. We're going to look at a link between depression, anxiety, stress, and actual dementia. But a person who's in a really deep depression can have very real memory loss. We treat the depression and the memory loss goes away. A person who's malnourished may be having some confusion. We treat that and the memory loss goes away. So let's look at a much more complete list of those dementia signs and symptoms. Now, keep in mind, you've seen one person with dementia, you've seen one person with dementia. We say that a lot. We don't ever want families to look at this list and go, oh my gosh, that means that my loved one is going to. No, it doesn't. A person with dementia may do 5 of these throughout the course of the disease, 10 of these, 30 of these, 2 of these. But each of the things you see here are common if we see this in someone with dementia. Now, if you're not working in the healthcare field, or if this isn't your field, is dementia care, we may not know this. We may think that they are just being ornery, or they're just being stubborn, or that they're developing some type of psychological issue when it's dementia showing up. Because families will tell me when they get well into the disease and they're really getting educated and they're in support group, now that I know so much about the disease, I can look back, and 2 years before the memory loss, I was seeing some of these other things show up, because they don't just wake up with dementia one day. The only one that comes on suddenly is some vascular dementia, especially after a stroke. But the majority of the dementias, they're coming on over the course of 10 to even 20 years. We know that the brain changes are taking place when a person's in their 50s, in their 60s, and they may not be showing any signs, or maybe some of this is starting to show up, but it's not affecting their day-to-day life yet. They're having some changes. So we're briefly going to go over the most common types of dementia. Over 130 different types. We've already said Alzheimer's disease is the most common type. It's about 70% of all the dementias. We hear about that the most often. Vascular dementia is exactly what it sounds like, has to do with the cardiovascular system. Who's most at risk for this? And this is a big group of us here. Anybody who's got high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, any heart issues, smokers, obesity can show up. Vascular dementia. The next one, Lewy body dementia. Lewy body dementia, average onset is in a person's 60s, and it typically presents and looks like Parkinson's. They will have a lot of mobility issues, may develop a tremor and have hallucinations, and they may even get diagnosed as Parkinson's when it isn't Parkinson's. But a person can have Lewy body and have Parkinson's at the same time, just like they can have Alzheimer's and vascular dementia at the same time. That's actually called mixed dementia, when a person has two or more. Then there's frontotemporal dementia. Frontotemporal is what it sounds like. This part of the brain is more affected, where on the other types of dementias, on Alzheimer's disease, the atrophy of the brain tends to be at about the same rate, but the frontotemporal dementias, it's that frontotemporal part that tends to atrophy first. Look at the ages on this. 30 to 65, strong family history, 4 times more common in men, and it's now the #1 leading type of dementia in people under the age of 65. FTD, we're hearing a lot about it right now. Bruce Willis was diagnosed with FTD. His family has been so gracious in talking about it, not hiding it. They're sharing it. His wife actually just wrote a book, and she wrote the book because she said he got a diagnosis and they sent them on their way. And many of you, if you've lived through this, here's your medicine, here's your Aricept, we'll see you in 6 months. So she wrote a book about what she wished somebody would have told her at the beginning. And then Parkinson's disease dementia. Not everybody with Parkinson's is going to develop dementia, but the latest statistics say that 50 up to 80% of those with Parkinson's will eventually develop Parkinson's disease dementia. So what are our risk factors of developing dementia? Well, here's why we're talking about this. Age is the #1 risk factor, and there's not anything we can do about our age, but there are some things we can do about some of the rest of this. Not anything we can do about genetics or family history, but most of the rest of this we can do something about. Taking care of our brain, healthy. So June is Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. So we want to age well. We want to take care of our brains. So we've got some control over smoking, obesity, that sedentary lifestyle, alcohol use, some of the buildup of plaque in arteries, because that's cholesterol. So we can be aware of that. That's a change in diet. That's a change in our habits. major depressive disorder that isn't treated. We can treat depression. Even in treatment-resistant depression, we can treat some symptoms. Cholesterol's on there. That high amino acid factor in Alzheimer's and vascular is on there. Diabetes, being antisocial, not engaging in brain activities, and that mild cognitive impairment. A person who gets diagnosed with MCI or mild cognitive impairment, about 40% of the time within 3 years, it will go ahead and become dementia. There are an awful lot of studies that show, though, that if a person gets diagnosed with MCI and they make changes to their diet and to exercise habits, that they can ride that plateau even longer. I mentioned earlier about depression and dementia. We've got studies now about how depression changes the brain. And I want you to look at this scan. A healthy brain, look there, it's pointing at the frontal cortex, versus chronic depression. Anxiety and depression damage the brain, literally damage the brain, because of chemical changes that occur in the hippocampus. And the hippocampus is the memory center of the brain. That's why when we're really anxious, we're really depressed, we make mistakes, we are confused, we forget things. Our brain is coated in cortisol, which cortisol's good when it's coming at a time of fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and we need that every once in a while, but when we're living in it, it starts to change the brain, and we can see it now. Look at this other area that's affected by chronic depression, the conflict resolution center of the brain. The prefrontal cortex of the brain, and what's held there? Planning and executive function. The ability to be reasonable and rational. Our filter is also located there. Say that, don't say that. Do that, don't do that. And now there's a link between depression and dementia. Got to treat depression. So how do we get a diagnosis? Let's start with our primary care physician. Always going to start with the primary care physician. And the first thing they should do is an interview of the patient and an interview of the care partner. Because the patient may very well, there's nothing wrong with me, I'm fine. And they may be able to have the banter back and forth, especially if you're really early. The doctor and go, well, let's see, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, they had an incident where they, let's see, they got lost doing, we only have 7, 8, 9 minutes with that doctor. Start a journal. Start it on the notes page so that when you get in there to that doctor, you can say, for the last 3 months, I've been seeing bam, 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 bam. And that doctor may be able to start to find a pattern. It's going to be so helpful. If you don't want to say these things in front of your loved one, send them through the patient portal. Hand it to the nurse ahead of time. Have that family history ready before you go to the doctor. Otherwise, you're going to have to come back. Call everybody up. Talk about it. Have the family medical history ready. Medication review. They should be doing a medication review in case this is a medication interaction. They should do a physical exam and they should do a mental status exam at the primary care office. They can do something called an MMSE, the mini mental state exam. It's about 30 questions. They should also order complete blood work. Lots of times it's called a CBC, where it's a complete blood workup. Because we mentioned earlier, what if a person's thyroid's out of whack? What if those electrolytes are out? What if the iron is way out of whack? There's all kinds of things that can cause confusion that's not dementia. And then the primary care physician may order some imaging tests. Now, sometimes they'll push you on to the neurologist for that, but a lot of primary care physicians will go ahead and order some imaging like an MRI. to be able to get an idea of, do we need to go ahead and go on to the neurologist or the geriatrician? So if we then end up at the neurologist or the geriatrician, or you start out there, some people will start there, they should do the same thing as that PCP. They should order all those tests unless you've already had that done. But they're going to specialize in the field. So they're going to have some additional tests that they may do. They don't all do this. It depends on how the person is presenting. They may do a lumbar puncture to test for those proteins in the spinal fluid. They may order that MRI if it hasn't already been done. They typically start with an MRI. They may order a CAT scan. They might order a PET scan or an EEG. Again, it's going to depend on how they're presenting, what other comorbidities they have. Their age can come into it. If somebody is presenting with some of these symptoms and they're 48, they're 55, they're 62, it's going to be very different than if someone's presenting at 82, 85, or 93. Somebody's 93 and they're just starting to have these issues. They're already well over life expectancy. Life expectancy average in the United States, 77.4 years, I believe right now. 80 for women, 75 for men. Are we going to put them through all of this? Probably not. Because we're going to talk about, what are we going to do? So a neuropsychologist, and again, it depends on whether we're going to do this, because neuropsych testing is very long. It can be 4 to 6 hours. It tests orientation, memory, attention, verbal and written commands, and other cognitive abilities. It's very difficult. It would be difficult for any of us to go through. And it takes hours. So why would we do it? When do we do it? This is just saying again, some of those exams that they may do. It's a ruling out process many times. If someone is eligible and they are interested, or the family is interested in doing clinical trials, then yes, we want to go through and do all of the tests and get a diagnosis. It can help research. If you're in the DFW area, we are blessed that we've got UT Southwest and UNT Health Science Center. We've got Baylor. We've got so many different places. Houston is another place, a lot of the big cities where you're advancing the research, because look how far we've come, even since I've been working in the field over a decade. When I first started working in the field, the way that we got a firm diagnosis was autopsy. And that's a little bit late. And now we can get a firm diagnosis. The other reason for people to get diagnosed is we want them to be able to participate in the decisions about their health care. Let's sit down and have the hard talk about what's this going to look like as we move forward. What's it going to look like financially? What's it going to look like as far as living options go? What's it going to look like as far as legal matters go? We want time to develop a relationship with our team of doctors, with our specialists, to get our support team in place. And you know, most people don't do this, because the majority of folks, by the time they get to us or they call us, they're well into it, and then they're in a crisis and they're scrambling. And it makes sense, because if grief sets in, for the family members and for the person, we start through grief, because we know where this is headed. And it's really easy to put it off and put it off and put it off until you can't put it off anymore. So why test if there's not a cure? And there's not a cure. But what if we could get educated? What if we could learn everything that we could about this and figure out how to live well with, rather than fear? What if we could get started on some of the symptom management medications earlier? so that we have quality time, because that's what we're looking at, is quality time. What if we could plan for the future and start doing some of those bucket list items? The families that I know who, I hate using the word embrace because it's hard to think of embracing dementia, but who accepted maybe, and they did do the trips, and they did get things in order, and they did go out together and research places just in case they had to place them later. They felt like they did it together as a family. Getting into support services and education as soon as possible can make it easier on the family to navigate the disease, which makes it easier on the patient to navigate the disease. We've been hearing it here. This education department's been going for 13, 14 years, where families will literally say, hey, I don't know how I got through this without having the education and the support. And me being better as the caregiver made my loved one's journey better. The other thing we can do is start making changes in lifestyle choices. For us, and if we can catch it at MCI, mild cognitive impairment, or early enough, what if we could hold that plateau longer? The statistics for the MIND diet, MIND, the MIND diet, of people who even marginally follow it, the plateaus where it was 34, 35% longer than those who didn't. And the people who really followed it in a strict way, they stay on that plateau longer. We start to focus on what's important. So I mentioned earlier, what if we're afraid to have this talk? What if we're seeing changes in our loved one, but we don't know how to bring it up? Of course, it is normal for you to have those feelings of being afraid. You're afraid for them, and you're afraid for yourself. It's a lot easier to pretend that nothing's going on, or that it's a normal part of aging, or I bet it's just their hearing or their eyes. I bet that's it. But what if we went ahead and started the conversation? What if we sat down together and had the conversation, the honest, hard conversation? Let's talk about this. Let's do this together. I'm going to be right here with you. And then you hit this wall because they insist that nothing's wrong. Ask some questions like, are you seeing any changes in yourself? Do you feel like you've had any changes? Is there somebody else you'd rather talk to than me? Are you scared? If they start to cry, it's okay. If you start to cry, it's okay. This is scary. The biggest thing is making sure that you assure them that you're going to be with them. Do not make promises you cannot keep. And by that, I mean, don't say to someone with dementia, I will never put you in a nursing home. I will never place you anywhere. Don't do that to yourself. Because then if you do end up having to place them, that guilt, we've got an entire program called I Made a Promise. We don't know where this disease is going to take them. No one plans on placing their loved one. I've never met anybody who said, well, you know, from the minute I found out about the dementia, I knew eventually I was going to place them. Never met anybody who said that. Because we don't. We don't plan on it. It just happens. And it's usually because of crisis. So what if they have a negative reaction? They're afraid. When people get mad, the easiest emotion is anger. When you study emotions, when you study feelings, you find out the easiest emotion for most people to have is anger. And at the root of anger, 9 times out of 10 is fear. It's fear. Of course they're mad. Imagine if you had somebody come up to you and start pointing some things out. I don't have anything wrong with me. You do. Because you're asking them to be vulnerable. We want to listen. We want to be respectful, validate their feelings, and then reassure them. Use a lot of compassion. So what can we do if there's no treatment and there's no therapy? What do we do? Well, there are things we can do. There are medicines out, and we're going to look at some specific medicines. They are for symptoms. They improve mental functions, mood, and behavior. We like to think of, we talk about here at the West Center, that everybody is palliative care here. Everybody is palliative care. And palliative care, here's what palliative care is. It focuses on quality of life. That's it. It's the quality of life for somebody who's terminal. So this is a terminal illness. If they don't die from something else, they will die from dementia. Palliative care is going to focus on the body, the mind, and the spirit. And moving forward and living today and being mindful of today and making connections today. Getting support and counseling for the patient as well as the care partners. And a lot of times what you'll find, that's why I'm a grief therapist, is grief counseling is the best. Because you're going through a very special type of grief. It's called ambiguous loss. Ambiguous loss is where we're grieving the loss of somebody who's still alive. Because the dementias don't go on for days, weeks, or months. This is going to go on for years. It's going to change everything. It's going to turn our world upside down. And it's grief that we're going through. And families, most of the time, think grief means death and grief means loss. We've got to walk through the loss to walk through this journey of dementia. So what are some things we can do? We can do cognitive behavioral therapy, is what I'm talking about, CBT, most common type of therapy where we learn to reframe. And what we learn to reframe is to not focus on the past, not focus on the future, focus on today. This is all we've got. Look to the future, try to find the joy in dementia. There is still joy to be had. There's interpersonal therapy. It's usually shorter therapies, usually last 12 to 16 weeks, and it can focus on relationships. There's problem-solving therapy, especially if somebody maybe just got diagnosed, somebody just went on hospice, they're changing through the stages of the disease. The family might need some of that problem-solving therapy. There's always pastoral counseling that you can find at your churches, or you can actually go to a licensed professional counselor, an LMSW, an LCSW. Let's talk about medication. There are some medications out there. The most common ones you've probably heard of: Aricept, Namenda, Exelon. Some of the most common ones are listed here. And then on the next slide, we're going to look at the new medications that are out. Typically, when people first get diagnosed, the doctor will put them on, and I've got both names there, the generic and the name brand, the medication Aricept. Some people can take it, some cannot. Part of what it does is, for the people that it works for, it doesn't work for everybody, is it kind of helps hold those plateaus longer. That's the whole point, is let's hold the plateaus longer. With all of these medications, even with the antipsychotics and the antidepressants, this is treating symptoms. We want to hold the plateaus as long as we can. Namenda is listed on there as one to treat confusion. There's antipsychotics that can help treat things like mood disorders, irritability, anxiety, depression, hallucinations, delusions. There's medications for that. Aggression, agitation, hostility, uncooperativeness. Agitation is on there twice. I just realized that. So antipsychotics sometimes do have to be used. Well, families will then go and read about it online. Be careful about Dr. Google. Listen to your doctor. Listen to your dementia care specialist. Antidepressants. Depression and dementia tend to go hand in hand, especially in the first stages of the disease, early in the disease, when they do know something's going on, whether they're saying it or not. Antidepressants do tend to go hand in hand with caregivers as well. Got to take care of ourselves. Now, many times they may be on that antidepressant, come off of it, and then go back on it later in the disease just because of all the chemical changes that take place in the brain. There are medications that treat anxiety, restlessness, that verbally disruptive behavior and resistance, and there's mood stabilizers. Now, you may have been hearing about the new infusions that are on the market. There's a once monthly, there's a once every 2 weeks. The cost of Leqembi, which is probably the one that we hear about the most, is about $26,500 a year. It is covered by Medicare if the person is enrolled in a CSM registry. Two of the biggest concerns about these infusions is the possibility of brain bleeds or brain swelling. The people that I know who have used it, and I've talked with some families that their loved one is currently doing this, they are very, very careful about doing scans to look for the brain bleeds and the brain swelling. Now, as far as research goes right now, it seems to be, it's kind of hard to word this. It's like an average plateau time of about 5.5 months. In other words, it's like it's buying them 5.5 months of staying at the same level, if that makes sense, versus not being on it in the people that it's working for. Now, keep in mind, it is not reversing memory loss. It's not restoring lost memories, and it's not reversing or restoring cognitive functioning. It's halting. It's holding them right where they are. The goal of the medications is to halt the progression of the disease as long as possible. We're just not there yet in the research to reverse it. And what they're looking at now is, let's just not ever get it. Let's not ever develop it. That's why there's so much out right now, especially this month, Brain and Alzheimer's Awareness Month, about, in fact, I had someone bring me a copy of the New York Times today with information on it about diet and about caffeine for brain health. So it's out there, but are you doing it? Do you know what to do, but you're not doing it? It takes 28 to 30 days to make or break a habit, by the way, 28 to 30 days. So some other things that we can do to enhance quality of life. A person with dementia will very likely go in and out of physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy. Why is that? It's not curative, but it's comfort. It's not curative, but it's comfort. So let's look at each of them. Why they go in and out of physical therapy. Eventually, with dementia, they will stop walking because they are going back in time, the theory of retrogenesis, and we were not always walking. We were not always feeding ourselves. We were not always toileting ourselves. We were not always talking in complete sentences. And that's where this disease is taking us. We had a lot of falls when we were learning to walk, and we'll start to have a lot of falls as we stop walking. But one of the things that physical therapy can do is tap into procedural memory and muscle memory, and it can help with that fall risk. It can keep them walking longer. It can keep that cognition stronger, longer, because they know how to tap in. They are trained on how to tap into muscle memory. It keeps muscle tone as well. Flexibility, strength, balance, and mobility is huge, which can then improve their ability to take care of their own task, and it keeps their independence longer. Then there's occupational therapy. This may be one that you're not as familiar with, but occupational therapy, you want to talk about tapping into muscle memory, because they are going back to those activities of daily living. Eating, brushing teeth, combing hair, showering, all the things that we do during the day. And it can help them maintain the ability to do those practical activities of daily living. They also can advise on how to make a house safe, putting in the grab bars, using bath chairs, adaptive eating utensils, and other modifications. We've got a resource there. A physical therapist can teach you how to do transfers of your loved one so that you don't hurt yourself. How you can continue to do some physical therapy type exercises at home with them. We wouldn't want to say to somebody with dementia, you need to go over there and do your exercises. But what if we did it with them and even made it about us? It's time for us to do our exercises, or I'm going to do these exercises. I thought you might want to do them with me. And then speech therapy. Again, you may not have thought about this before, but speech therapy is who we call on whenever there are changes with eating, drinking, and swallowing. They can actually do swallow studies because their diet is going to change as the disease progresses, and speech therapy is who we call on for that. And then another one that is so important for somebody who has dementia is music and music therapy. The left side of the brain deteriorates faster than the right. And so we say that left language leaves, that day-to-day language leaves, right remains, and on the right is where rhythm is stored. So that's where music is stored. And music can be used as a mood stabilizer. Music can be used to interact with other people. It reduces isolation. It can get people to dance and to exercise. There's so many things that can be done with music. It is one of the best things that we can do for somebody who has dementia is to use music. Other interventions that we want to do, and we've mentioned this, education for those families, educations for the care partners. The more the family's educated, the better they will do on their loved one's journey of dementia. Changing the environment to resolve challenges, being careful about noise and glare and clutter. Monitoring their loved one for personal comfort. Because if you ask a person with dementia, are you hurting? They will probably say no. No is one of the first 5 words we learn. It's one of the last 5 words that a person has. Most people can still say no even at end of life. We've got to learn to read their body language. If somebody's got a furrowed brow or they're holding an area and we say, is that hurting? No. Well, they're telling me yes, but they're using the words that they've got left. We can't be confrontational with somebody with dementia or argue or be reasonable or rational. Making sure adequate rest. Look for the reason behind the behavioral expression. About 80% of the time, they're trying to get a need met. We have approached them incorrectly, or the environment setting me off. Today here, it's very cloudy and it's been lightning. So I've got the blinds pulled. If it were a sunny day, I'd have them open. Flexibility, compassion, and then redirection. The 4 things that tend to work best with a person with dementia as far as redirection goes: food, music, animals, and children. The sweeter, the better with the food. Their music, not your music, unless you're from the same generation. Animals and children. Now, let's also talk about some interventions with stress and depression. Because I said earlier about depression being treatable, and most depression is treatable. 100% of the time, we can treat some of the symptoms. About 80% of the time, we can alleviate depression. And it's much more than an antidepressant. Antidepressants have their place and they are important, but so is exercise. But when we're depressed, one of the last things we want to do is exercise. But I'll tell families, I'll tell loved ones, I'll tell those caregivers, try to find something to do. Taking the walk, put in the video, go on YouTube and do some chair yoga, do something, just move. Education about depression. Just like dementia, people hear dementia and think memory loss. People hear depression and think sad. You can be depressed and not be sad. There's over 20 different symptoms for depression. You don't have to be sad to be depressed. It's a big part of it, but you don't have to be. What we want to avoid is self-medicating. Because it's easy to self-medicate with alcohol, with drugs, with food, with shopping, by overdoing anything just to feel better for a little while. So what are some things that we can do to actually help someone who's got that dementia diagnosis? First of all, we want to offer support. We want to make sure that we are there, that we use what's called validation therapy. If a person has been diagnosed or is about to get diagnosed, be present. We don't want to use the word remember, because when you say remember to somebody who's having memory issues, you're reminding them that they forgot, and that can then make them mad. You're reminding them that there's an issue. But what if we just said, okay? Even if we're sitting down to have that hard talk and they get mad, if we could just answer back with, okay. Not okay, I understand, because you don't understand, because you hadn't had it happen before. Okay, I'm here. Okay, I hear you. Okay, I'm listening. Okay. Because when you say okay, you're validating that you heard them. That's what you're saying. You're not saying you're right. You're just saying I heard you. Okay. You continue to build your skills as their family member, as their care partner. Keep your focus on quality of life. It's not about quantity, it's about quality. I had this talk earlier with our family council here. When we start thinking about hard decisions at end of life, who are you making the decisions for? Are you making it for you? Or are you making it for them? Are you making the best decision for you? Or are you making the best decision for them? Because too many times when a person moves into a facility, one of the papers that they give you is that DNR, do not resuscitate. And families will say in the same sentence, I want them to have a natural death, but I don't want to sign a DNR. I want you to do CPR on them. I want you to do everything you can to save them, but I want them to have a natural death. That's an oxymoron there. And CPR doesn't look like what it looks like on the TV. And the reality is that it's single digits of people with dementia who are placed that will survive CPR, be resuscitated, go to the hospital, and come back. It's like 6 or 7%. And then what's their quality of life? You got to think about that kind of stuff. Go to their world. That's one of the first things we've got to learn to do. And families will then say, once I learn to enter their world and stop trying to bring them to mine, our life got a lot easier. They can't come to our world. We have to go to theirs. And it's a little bit cruel to try to bring them to a place that isn't real to them. And at the same time, while we're doing all of that, as caregivers, we've got to take care of ourselves. We've got to take care of ourselves. So I've got 3 G's that I use with families because the guilt comes up a lot. I feel guilty because I placed my loved one. I feel guilty if I don't go every day. I feel guilty because I couldn't keep them at home. Guilt, 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 guilt. So we're going to use some cognitive behavior therapy here. What if we got rid of that guilt? Because guilt is something that you hear in a courtroom. A person's guilty or they're innocent. So guilty means you did something wrong and you did it on purpose. I don't think I've met anybody yet that they intentionally did something wrong with their loved one with dementia. So let's get rid of that word guilt. And why don't we call it what it really is? It's grief. It's grief. I'm grieving that I wasn't able to keep my loved one home. I'm grieving that it's time that we go on hospice. I'm grieving that we got to a crisis. And let's call it grief and allow ourselves to start walking through the grief process. So there's the second G. So guilt, Let's cover that with grief. And then let's cover that with grace. Grace. You didn't know what you didn't know. Give yourself some grace. You know more. You know better. You do better. You keep taking classes. You keep doing what you're doing right now. And you take care of yourself so you then better take care of your loved one. There are a lot of places that you can go for help. We've given a lot of resources. Marty's already sent the slides. We'll resend them. You're going to have access to this video. We are here at the West Center, the Area Agency on Aging, of course, the Alzheimer's Association, that is national, and that 800 number on there is a national number. Their website is on there. We've also got some local resources here, but go to the National Institute on Mental Health, go to the National Institute on Aging. They have all kinds of resources on there and it's free. They will send you pamphlets. They will send you brochures. And then there's stuff that you can share with other people. We have a YouTube page that you can go to, and we've got dozens of videos just like this one that's on there. Marty's got a page as well where you can find that information. We've got plenty of time for questions. We are right here at the end of the program, but we do still have time, so I wanted to leave plenty of time for questions. Jamie or Marty, one is going to hop back on real quick and tell us about the CEs.
Jamie, do you want to go first?
Yes, there we go. We are happy to offer 1.5 hours CE credits, I should say, for nursing, social work, LPCs, and certificate of attendance. You will receive a follow-up email from Marty in the next day or two, and there will be the evaluation for your Survey Monkey. To get your CE credits, you have to complete the Survey Monkey evaluation in the follow-up email. We ask everybody do it because we do appreciate your feedback on our programs. But if you want that credit, you have to complete it. And if you will please allow us about 5 weeks from when you complete the survey for us to process those and get them to you through your email.
Very good. I just was checking out the link. Someone put that they're getting an error on the link. The link worked fine for me. So you might try copying the link and as opposed to just clicking on it, copying and paste it in the in your web browser in order to get to that. But when I clicked on it, it did open up the slides. But back to CEUs. I'm sorry. Back to the CEUs. In addition to Jamie's CEU, we also have a Google evaluation survey that we collect for information to report back to our funders on the webinars that we do and what kind of feedback we get from the people and what kind of attendance we get from people. It all rolls into to helping us get the funding to keep doing these. So please, I ask you to do both, but please remember the Survey Monkey is the one that's vital for your CEUs. In fact, I am going to put Jamie. Oh no, I can't do it. Maybe I can. I have. There's something about the Google Monkey, the Survey Monkey, that really causes me fits with my email for some reason. I don't know why. But let me say, I had forwarded it to my Gmail and I got it to work. Let me find it here and I will put it in here. Did you guys find questions?
I did. And so I wanted to address those. You want me to go ahead and do that now?
Yes. I'm just as you're doing that, I'm copying the Survey Monkey link into the chat for everybody who wants to get it.
Somebody had asked.
You go with it.
Okay, what does doing extensive blood work show? So doing extensive blood work is where those things that I mentioned that can be treated might show up. So if somebody is having some issues with an electrolyte imbalance, or they're having some issues with a thyroid disorder, or they are horribly anemic, or they are, anything like that that would show up in complete blood work. Another thing that can show up in blood work is inflammation in the body. And there's a direct link between inflammation and dementia. So all of that can show up in blood work. So getting that initial blood work that's where we're going to start. And then somebody had asked the research connection between dementia and statins. I just read, so I just pulled it up, a new article by Harvard. So we're always, when we're online, we're going to make sure that we're going to reliable resources, not just Dr. Google, not just the WebMD. Make sure that you're going to reliable resources. Harvard would be one of those. Cleveland Clinic is one of those. Mayo Clinic is one of those. So yes, it's huge right now. There's lots of people talking, but there's also lots of rumors out there about statins and the link between dementia and statins. So this is what I wanted you to hear. When it comes to the research on statins and dementia, there is enough inconsistency in the findings to conclude that if statins do have an effect on cognition, it's quite subtle. However, if you take a statin and you experience symptoms of brain fog or confusion, immediately contact your physician. You need to switch to a different statin. So, excuse me, that being said, that doesn't mean we throw all the statins out, because we've talked about heart health and brain health and how there's a connection. So we've really got a way. Vascular dementia, you can, so many times there's that direct link to cholesterol issues or a stroke, where if we'd have been on the statin, maybe we wouldn't have had that happen. So we really do have to weigh some things here. And they haven't been able to show enough to, you can switch, just like not every high blood pressure medication is going to work. Lots of times we have to try several. Someone asked if they were going to have access to the recording. Yes, I think Marty talked about that. PowerPoint slides. Yes, yes, yes. What kind of doctor treats dementia? So we start with the primary care physician, then we go to the neurologist or the geriatrician. And most people will stay with their neurologist or a geriatrician. There, occasionally somebody will have a primary care physician that, especially if they're well into the disease, their primary care physician may do any meds that they need if they've had a long relationship with them. But for the most part, a person's going to use a neurologist. Mind diet. Yes, it is a type of diet. So if you look up the Mind diet, M-I-N-D diet, it is a particular type of diet. It's actually pretty easy to follow. It is a combination of the Mediterranean-based diet and the DASH diet. The DASH diet is what's used for people with hypertension. So it basically gives 10 do's and 5 not so much. It doesn't even say don't, because red meat's on the not so much. And here in Texas, that just isn't going to fly to put no red meat. So it does say not so much red meat. But if you Google Mind Diet, there's books, there's entire magazines about it right now. It's kind of the thing, which is good. It isn't that hard to follow. I've been doing it since the 1st of May and am doing blood work and tracking to see how my own personal things are changing. It's just a change is what it is. It's lots of green leafy vegetables. It's also berries, blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, blackberries. It is fish like salmon and tuna, nuts. It does have caffeine on there. You can have caffeine, just not tons and tons of it. You can have red wine, 5 ounces, not 55 ounces or 25 ounces, but 5 ounces. So you can still have that. You can have dark chocolate. So check it out. It actually is not hard to follow.
Holly, is there a link that you have that maybe is a very simple, whether it's YouTube or that you could send me that I can include in the follow-up email?
Yes, yes, yes.
I would love to do that.
Yeah. Let's see. Did I get anything, Jamie? Did you see anything else? I saw you answer.
Holly, there was one at 3:10 in the chat. You may have gotten to it. I love the guilt, grief, grace. how would you handle education when their loved one has become physically and verbally aggressive?
Yes, absolutely. So when somebody has become physically and verbally aggressive, first thing we want to always assess for is pain. Always. We're going to assess for pain first. Could this be pain that we're just not seeing? I had someone becoming very physically and verbally aggressive, who was 54 years old. 54 years old. It ended up, it was menopause with her, but she couldn't say anything, but she would hold herself and she'd actually beat on herself right here, but she couldn't say, I'm hurting. So we want to do a full assessment for pain first, and we want to check for a urinary tract infection. Urinary tract infection. The first time somebody becomes verbally aggressive or physically aggressive, check for that UTI. That may be their way of saying it. Now, if they don't have any pain, they are just becoming verbally aggressive, physically aggressive, we still want to check and see, is there an unmet need? Are we telling them to go over there and sit down and watch TV, and they're needing to be busy? And so they're getting aggressive because they need to be needed. They need a purpose. They need a job. They need to be doing something. If it gets to the point that you just can't solve it, you can't figure out, you can't put the pattern together, that's when we're going to go to the medications. Because on that list of medications we had there, aggression is one of those things, because it can be a part of the disease. That's a normal part of the disease, but you can treat that. Now, keep this in mind also with the medication. This is temporary. This is temporary. Everything about dementia is temporary because it's a progressive disease. Now, when you're in the middle of it, it doesn't feel temporary whenever all of that's happening, but it is. It's one of the phases of the disease. So I encourage you first to really be a good detective. Maybe be writing down the times of day. What happens? We've got something we talk about doing like an ABC. What's the antecedent? What happens right before the aggression? What is the behavior? And then what happens afterwards, or what works, what doesn't work, and kind of work your way through that. What time of day is it? Who's present? What's going on? What's on the TV? What does it look like outside? Is it in the same room every time? Those type things.
And Holly, I think this question was actually asking about when the loved ones become aggressive, when they get frustrated, the caregivers get frustrated and get aggressive. What can you do
Oh,
from
when
the
the
outside?
from the caregiver gets aggressive.
That was my understanding of the question, and I may be wrong, but you'll see it in the chat at 3:10 p.m. and you might read it. I may be wrong, but that's kind of the way I read it.
Loved ones become physically. Handle education when their loved ones become physically. See, I read it the other way.
Okay, and you could very well be right, and I could have misread it, and I'm sorry.
Now, if it is the other way, and it is the caregiver's got a 3-pound brain, and that's where the caregiver's got to back out of that room, take those deep breaths. Remember, I'm the one with the 3-pound brain. Because sometimes it's a change of face that they need. It's us, it's our tone, because they're going to pick up on our aggression. They're going to pick up on us getting upset. So in that brain, the hippocampus is dying. The hippocampus is failing. That holds memories, that holds day to day, that holds banter. Their amygdala is damaged, but it is not dying. It's damaged. It changes, but they can still pick up on your feelings, emotions, body language, expressions, and tone. And so even after a person with dementia has a complete flat affect, they can read you. They can read your body language. They can read your tone. And they will always be able to till the end of their life. I promise you they can. And they'll be able to hear. They might not be able to hear well, but they'll be able to hear. And so they will pick up on the tone of the room, the tone of the house. So if I, as a caregiver, am really getting upset, they're going to feed off of that.
I'm going to add, we did 2 webinars 2 weeks ago with the Dr. Ron Modern, and on the effects of stress on you, the caregiver, and how to deal with that. And those aren't up on videos yet. As soon as those are up on video, which should be in the next week, I will send those out to you all. There's some really good information, but more importantly, there's some really good techniques on what to do when you get to those points, how to catch yourself and how to calm yourself down because of the destructive nature of stress.
Good, good, good. And we've got to keep in mind also as caregivers that it has a very, very real effect on us. Statistics show us how many caregivers pass away before the person with dementia does. So we really do have to, and this isn't just something that Jamie and I or Marty read about, we live it, we see it every day. I've lost too many members of my support group. I've lost people who are part of our education family, and they were the caregivers. So it's very, very real.
Thanks for clarifying, Kayla.
Thank you.
I'm sorry that I read it wrong, but thanks for clarifying.
I see we've got somebody with their hand raised. We do have everybody muted, so if you could type into the chat or the Q&A if you've got a question or a comment, just because we've got 167 people on.
We surely do. I missed it. Yeah, Deborah. Deborah and Robbie, if you could type what information you have or anything you want to say in the chat or the Q&A. We don't get to the hands because it starts opening up mics, and we're in a webinar format, and with 168 people, it can become very difficult to manage when we open up mics. So please just if you could put your question, or you will have our contact information in the follow-up email. If you're not comfortable doing that, you're more than welcome to contact one of us afterwards.
And I saw a question about program for caregivers and burnout. We've got a program we've done on caregiver burnout and compassion fatigue. And I believe Marty's got that one. We've got that one as well. So on our YouTube page, which is James L. West Center for Dementia Care, Marty's as well, those programs are out there.
I need a link. I need if you Jamie or Holly, either one, would send me a direct link to the videos. Do you have a video page? I haven't seen it. You have a page just for videos on your website?
We do. Yeah, we have our playlist.
Yeah, could you send me the link to that? And I'll include that as well.
Yes.
And we're going to say thank you. And I know we have a couple of minutes, but I think we've covered everything.
I think so.
And I think if nobody else has any questions, then you've done a good job.
Thank
An incredibly
you.
good job. Holly,
Somebody did ask if they had to register to get emails. Do I need to register to receive emails?
Once you've registered for the webinar, that will automatically get you registered for our emails. And so yes, you will get on there just by the fact that you have registered for the event.
All right.
So Holly, thanks again. Very, very, very nice. Very impressive. Great job. Jamie, thank you so much for all that you do for us. I thank you for both of you for the incredible partnership. I appreciate you continuing. I know you have opportunities, and I very much appreciate you working with me on these. I'm sincerely grateful. So thank you all so very, very much.
Thank you. See you next time.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and you all have a wonderful day.
Thanks.